I'm going to make a steak Guinness and oyster pie, and this is a really delicious, comforting pie. I'm going to top it with puff pastry, but you could top it with mashed potatoes. And some of you might think that oysters sound very strange being mixed here with the beef, but actually oysters were always thought of to be a very inexpensive but really good source of protein. So they bring this really good umami, savory flavor to the beef, but also they're absolutely delicious when they're cooked. A really good way to start actually eating oysters. They don't have a shellfish flavor, but just this lovely savory saltiness that's so good. Okay, so what I'm going to do first of all, I need for this beef, stewing beef, and oysters, of course. I've got 1 dozen oysters that I've just shucked, I've just opened. And I've got mushrooms. I've got stout, I'm using Guinness, you can use whatever stout you like. This brings great depth to the dish. I've got beef stock, onions, and some garlic, and a little bit of flour, or you could use a gluten-free flour if you're using mashed potato, and some salt and pepper and olive oil. So the first thing I need to do is to brown the beef with a bit of salt and pepper in some olive oil in the pan. Okay, so this pan's nice and hot. It's actually very hot, so I'm going to put a drizzle of olive oil in, and then the beef is going to go in. Okay, so now the beef is all browned. Take it off the heat and set it aside. What I'm going to do now is put the onions. I've got the onions here, 250 grams of onions and 2 cloves of garlic. The onions I've cut into wedges or quarters. I'm going to put them in here. Perfect. And chop them just for 5 seconds, speed 5. There. And speed 5. Okay, scrape down. Actually, there are a couple of coarse bits still on the side, so I'm just going to chop them for 3 more seconds. I don't want there to be big chunks. Yeah, that's good. Right, so now the onions are finely chopped, I can add in the beef and any juices that are in with the beef. Pour those in. And I'm also going to add, at this point, the flour. I've got 15 grams of flour, and this is going to help to thicken the juices really nicely for the pie. But of course you could leave the flour out and just serve this as a stew. 15 grams of flour. So before you put the stout and the stock in, just cook it at 90 degrees for 5 minutes. There, on speed stir. Okay, now it's time just to scrape the sides down again. Lovely. It smells like the flour is cooked now, that's good. And then I'm going to add in the stock, 250 mils of stock, or 250 grams, 250 grams of Guinness, 250, perfect, I'll finish that. And then put the lid on. And at this stage now, I need to cook it for 1 hour, 30 minutes before the mushrooms and the oysters go in, and 100 degrees speed stir. So now add the mushrooms and cook for another 30 minutes at 100 degrees speed stir. Okay, that looks and smells amazing. So now I'm going to put in the oysters. So I've shucked the oysters, gorgeous Irish oysters that I've got here, and all the juices, put those in too. And the last one. Okay, and now just push it on for 3 more minutes. The oysters are going to cook really quickly in the juices. 3 minutes at 100 degrees again, and just speed 1. Whew. That looks great. So taste it, see how it is for seasoning. Delicious. Check that the meat is really lovely and tender. Yes, it is. And now put the filling into your pie dish. So the juices, as you can see, the filling have thickened slightly. You don't want them to be too thick, but just like this is gorgeous. Or, of course, This is divine without the oysters too. I love it though with the oysters. There. Okay. And now I'm going to cut out the pastry for the top. Cut that around. Or you could always do this beforehand while the dish is empty. That would be even more sensible. There. And that's the pastry for my top. Sometimes it just shrinks as it's sitting for a minute. Just re-roll it one tiny bit more. So that's my lid. It's a good idea to just brush it with a little bit of egg wash, which gives it a lovely glaze. And then if you like, you can score it gently. And what the scoring does is, you see it cracks anyway as it puffs up and rises, the puff pastry. And the scoring makes a crack where the lines are and not just haphazardly, like that. Make a hole in the center. Like that. Brush around the lip of your pie dish if there is a little bit sticking out like that with some of the egg glaze, and then the lid will stick to it. And just for some decoration, I cut out these little leaves from the leftover pastry and I'm just scoring them. So now, time to assemble the pie. The oven is preheated. Okay. Lift the lid onto the pie. There. Help it along if it needs it. There. And then I made a hole in the center of the pastry, which is important just to allow a little bit of steam to escape. And then put it immediately, don't let that hole get covered, into the hot preheated oven. Bake it for about 25 minutes until it's rich golden brown. And now it is ready, all puffed up, bubbling around the edges. Looks just lovely. Serve this with, a bit of green salad, baked potato if you really want some more sustenance, and that's it. That is a very simple, lovely, homely and comforting steak, oyster and Guinness pie.